in the foster care system since I think you were a teenager or younger, for them, yeah, younger than that actually. He was moved from his home. He's been through a lot, but boy, is he one smart kid. And he talk about social media, he really gets into it. Yeah, we have a story about that, but don't tell anybody anywhere. He is fantastic, you're going to enjoy his story, but more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, pay attention and listen to his story, because it is very important, because his story is one of many stories across the valley. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you one of the brightest people in the Rio Grande Valley, Leroy Berrones Soto Jr. Come on now, Leroy.
I don't want to use my telephone.
I'm his telephone.
I'd like to thank every one of you for being here today. This is the 27th year that we have the Child Abuse Prevention Month. And what is child abuse? Abuse is an act of dangerous behaviors, attitudes, and beliefs that are passed from generation to generation when an abuser uses someone's status or physical disadvantage to sexually, physically, and emotionally or financially damage those who can defend themselves. A good local example is that John Allen Rubio and his wife Angela Camacho, who helped him decapitate 3 of their sons. If those kiddos would have been picked up by the state, those children would have still been enjoying their lives today. Allen is in death row, and Angela is serving a life sentence. The scale and impact of abuse is incredible. Abuse, one part of the family affair, impacts every community. Almost a quarter of children are sexually abused, a third of women battered, and 1 in 5 are raped. We bully our children to suicide and abuse our elders in their twilight years. Abuse has a taxpayer burden of $500 million a year, that's equivalent of 5 Iraq wars a year every year. A child's voice is small, ignored, and unheard. We must raise the volume so that everyone hears their message. Imagine if everyone in the country wore a blue ribbon in every community, business, school, trade organization, hospital, home display a blue ribbon. We could make such an impact in raising awareness to break the cycle that breaks children's heart, their lives, and their spirit, said Ross Ellis, founder and CEO of Love for Children USA. Now, on a personal note, this January marks my 18th birthday. I have to admit that life has not been easy. Coming to the U.S. at a very young age has taught me to respect this wonderful country in which we live in. I only recall a couple moments in Mexico. I remember I used to help my grandpa at a store named Oaxaca and being sexually abused by a guy named Alejandro, who is somehow related to my parents or grandparents. After that, I remember being with both of my parents in kindergarten here in Edinburg. I remember my parents used to wait for me for the bus outside of our house. After that, we only lived with my mom for about 4 or 5 years. I also remember that around 2003, I lost a baby sister who should have been around 10 years old now. She was always in the hospital. It was rare when she was home. That day, when she passed away, I had heard the ambulance siren. It was a couple of minutes before the end of the school day at Roosevelt Elementary here in Ontario. When I heard the siren, I had a feeling it was my sister. That was terrible news. The following year, I built a second grade. Then in the year 2005, I had a surprise. I was called to the front office at Sam Houston, and while I was nervous walking to the front office, I saw a familiar face. It was my father who has been in jail. I burst into tears and quickly walked to his protective arms. A year later, I was placed in foster care for the first time on November 15, 2005, because Child Protective Services had found me home alone while my mom was working. From that day, I was staying with a family that had children who weren't theirs and were closely related. I was placed there separated from my other 7 siblings. I went into a depression and neglected to eat. 2 weeks later, I moved to a foster home in San Juan where I was placed together with 3 of my younger brothers. I remained here for 2 years and a half. These foster parents are now like my parents. They were the ones that basically educated me through my teenage years, taught me about our awesome God, how to study, and how to be a normal child. On March 28, 2008, I was separated from them. The Child Protection Court of the Rio Grande Valley sent my siblings and I back home with my mom. My first couple of days were what I called an honeymoon. And after that, it was horrible. I regretted being home. My mom made me feel unwelcome. On May 8, 2008, 2 months after being placed with my mom, I was called to the office at Brown Middle School. As I walked to the office, my teacher and principal tried to calm me down since I knew that CPS was picking me up. I tried and begged, but still couldn't convince them to keep me out of foster care. I was then placed in care for the second time. The following month, the court released me. My mom had called the cops on me prior to being removed. She told them that I had hit her. My God well knows that my mom had hit herself in the mouth so that she can bleed and say it was me and my older sisters who had hit her. I remained with her for a couple of months, then we were protected and my dad moved close to us to protect us. On January 26, 2009, CPS once again picked my siblings and I up from school and said that my dad was incarcerated. We remained in care altogether in Los Fresnos until September 18 of the same year. We were then placed with my dad, and I went to live with my middle school counselor because my dad was moving to Edinburg, and I didn't want to change schools since I was used to it, and I had already changed schools more than 5 times that school year. On April 19, 2009, a bullet cut my heart open. My dad was murdered at a baptismal party where I was not in attendance because I was with my counselor, I was in the beach with my counselor. My counselor had to take me with my paternal aunt because of my dad's death. My mom was deported to Mexico, so we couldn't be with her, but the following year she came to us. She went to CPS to claim our custody and succeeded. After being with my mom and my siblings without supervision from my aunt, my mom started drinking and beating me up. She used to call me homosexual using paid words. One time she got aggressive and I was about to call CPS to protect me and she broke the bone my dad had used before he died. She had coached my siblings and I to lie to CPS that they won't take us to foster care. We were scared to go back to care since we had bad experiences with some foster parents discipline. A month passed. I had my mom's disconnected phone who can only send and receive messages. I received a message from my supervisor. I confessed to her where we lived. After they found out whereabouts, CPS came to visit us, and I was the first one to talk to her caseworker. I confessed to her about the abuse and neglect, and that we hadn't ate since we had nothing to eat. We used to start 2 or maybe 3 times a day. That day we were removed and taken to a CPS office where we spent the night at the visitation room until they come and take them for us. The following day, around noon, I was sent to a shelter in Laredo for about 5 days. When we sat at court, they found a placement for me in San Juan. Then I moved to another hospital to an unsuccessful placement, then to another. Currently, I am in Brownsville. I get bullied a lot. Again, by students calling me homosexual and using hate words. By students, and I'm going to confess that it's true. Although I'm 18 years old, I signed an extended care contract with the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services so that I can stay in foster care till at least 21. I want to remain here at least until I graduate from Lopez High School in Brownsville this June 9 as an 11th grader, then continue my higher education at the University of Texas, Pan American, where I have been accepted.
Yay!
I became a permanent resident after being illegally in this country for about 14 years. I was also the former president for the counsel for CPS, and due to school obligations, I was forced to step down. I want to advocate for all those children in the welfare system. I want to keep all families together, safe and protected. I do believe that if we create prevention programs so that children won't be removed from their schools and culture, they won't suffer as much depression, anxiety, or be addicted to sleeping and depression feels like me, due to a separation of their caring adults. I want to now thank Lady Casa, Canopy, Juan Salazar, Lopez High School, Brownsville, a World for Children, the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services, the Child Protection Court of Hidalgo County, Casa, the state, most importantly CPS, and my foster parents, Susana and Santiago Lopez, who gave me a chance to live and become someone productive in society, and for helping me spread the word of keeping children safe and prevent child abuse. I would also like to thank the person who reported the abuse in previous sponsorship time, because if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be where I'm right now. That number is, to report child abuse, you can call 1-800-252-5400 or go to txabusehotline.org. The CPS also has a campaign called helpandhope.org. You can go there for parenting tips. They also have it in Spanish, ayudaesperanza.org. And let's keep our children first, protected from harm, and connected to their communities. Thank you very much.
Was he dead or what? I think he deserves